Another day is here, and you're ready for it. What to wear? Check. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Check. Planning for what's next and how to save for it? That's where Bank of America can help. For your financial to-dos, Bank of America has experts ready to help get you closer to your goals. Get started at one of our local financial centers or 24/7 in our mobile banking app. Find a location near you at bankofamerica.com/talktous. What would you like the power to do? Mobile banking requires downloading the app and is only available for select devices. Message and data rates may apply. Bank of America N.A., member FDIC.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AEye Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AEye Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AEye Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello, welcome to AEye Scouted on Anfield Index Pro. I'm Dave Hendrick, joined as always by Mr. Karl Matchett. How are you, sir?
Rapidly running out of time to do everything.
Yes, we are hurtling towards the beginning of Euro 2024, which will then be followed a week later by the beginning of the Copa America, which promises to be an excellent competition itself this year. And if I'm being honest, I'm actually more excited about it than I am about the Euros, because there's too many fucking teams in the Euros. But we're going to combine those competitions with our beloved Liverpool today and discuss the Liverpool players that are going to be at this competition, Karl. So let's just start in Group A of the European Championships with Andy Robertson, captain of Scotland, the record-breaking captain of Scotland. How do you see the Scots going this summer? And how do you see this competition affecting Robbo, who has declined, I think, quite significantly in the last 2 years, and probably could have done with a summer to just stay home and rest, but instead will be going hell for leather up and down that left flank for his beloved nation this summer?
Cannot begrudge him that. Obviously, from a Liverpool perspective, you'd want everybody tucked up in bed, resting for 2 months straight. It doesn't really happen that way anymore. Scotland obviously had a long spell where they didn't get to major tournaments, so I think we've got to acknowledge and accept and understand that for Robertson to be the captain when they've been able to get to a couple of them kind of puts him in very, very high up on the Scottish pedestal. It's going to be very difficult for them to get through, I think, but that extra third place gives them a chance. I think if it was just top two normal Euros, I wouldn't really give them a prayer, to be honest. Matters made much more complicated by the fact they'd have so many injuries in the lead up to this. I think it's 3 attacking options that they've lost now from the original squad. Even like Ben Doak, who they were sort of taking a gamble on as a bit of a wild card. He's not fit enough to go for them. So I think like I say, I think it'll be very, very difficult for them to go through, but you might get through with one win. And they're going to have to go basically all out on making sure that final game, which is against Hungary, that's the one they really are in good shape for. So even if you lose in the first couple of games, don't lose by too many, because goal difference might well come into it when it's best third place. And secondly, make sure that you are really focusing, especially in that Switzerland match, on ways to be creative, be forward-thinking, all the rest of it. They'll have to try and obviously win the Switzerland match anyway. You can't just gamble on one game.
Yeah.
But at the same token, Switzerland have got a pretty good pedigree at European competitions, international tournaments, so will be very difficult for them. Robertson specifically, I just hope he has a good tournament, to be honest. It's pretty much a a straightforward job, isn't it, for Scotland? You're going to be in your own half a lot of the time. You're going to be making shuttle runs to close people down. He's got to be good defensively. And then he's just going to, like you say, keep running up and down that wing.
Yeah, so these sides last met, Hungary and Scotland, in 2018. So there's no real data there to tell us how they're likely to face up. But what we do know is that the captains who take the centre circle that day to shake hands and exchange pleasantries will both be Liverpool players, because Dominic Szoboszlai is the Hungarian captain. As with the Scots, they're likely looking at that third place and hoping that's their path in. You would say Germany are strong favourites to win the group, and then the Swiss are probably favourites for second, but without the great man Haris Seferovic there, maybe not. But Szoboszlai, I think, he had a weird season. He started really, really well, but was being used quite poorly. Then he got injured, and then he was never quite the same once he came back. He has been outstanding for Hungary over his career with the national team, but there's an awful lot on his shoulders going into this tournament. How do you see him doing, and how do you see them doing?
A little bit more possibility than Scotland, I think, because they have, generally speaking, more of their first choice players available. I think maybe Karl is the only one who they couldn't really include who they wanted to, so everybody else is kind of there if they were ever going to be. They've got a few players who can cause damage, and they've got more goals in the squad. Or maybe it's probably more accurate to say they've got a clearer idea of how to get goals from the squad than Scotland do, and that probably puts them, one or two notches above Scotland in terms of possibility to go through. They've also had really, really good results this year and last year. And that obviously leaves them being very, very confident. I mean, I don't think that Hungary will think that it is just about that last game, for them, to be honest. Their opener against Switzerland, I think they'll be targeting and winning that one. The calibre of teams that they've beat over the last sort of 18 months or so. I know they lost to your giants, obviously the Republic of Ireland, but they beat Turkey, beat Montenegro. That's a pretty good result. Beat Serbia in qualifying twice, I think. Just very, very strong results across the board, to be perfectly honest. So I don't think that they will be scared, let's put it that way, of not going through. I think they have a pretty good chance of getting 4 points, which should see them through one way or another.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And let's be honest, the reason they lost against Ireland is because they didn't take it all that seriously, and they committed far too many men forward on a late corner and just got caught on a counter-attack. So Troy Parrott ran from, 15 yards inside his own half, completely unopposed, towards the Hungarian net. So all you had to do was beat the goalkeeper. They had, in a normal situation, they're leaving two sat on the halfway line and giving themselves a better chance. So it was their own fault they lost. They didn't necessarily lose because Ireland are a better team, which, I mean, in fairness, Ireland are definitely not a better team than pretty much anybody. There's no Liverpool players in either the German or Swiss squads. There are no Liverpool players in the Spain, Croatia, Italy, or Albania squads. So we have no representatives in Group B. But obviously, Group C contains England. Now, there's nobody in the Slovenia squad, nobody in the Danish squad, and nobody in the Serbian squad. But in the England squad, we have Trent and we have Joe Gomez. For me, they should be the starting fullbacks. My guess is Gomez doesn't start and Trent starts in midfield.
I agree. I think at the minute it kind of looks like Joe Gomez is fourth choice centre-back. Whether or not that ends up being accurate, it kind of looks like Ezra Konsa's ahead of him there, so maybe Gomez is like second choice fullback on both sides and fourth choice fullback, something like that. I don't think his minutes are going to be high at the Euros anyway, because let's say Walker starts right back. If there's to be a change there because he's injured or tactical or whatever, I would imagine Trent moves from midfield to right back. That's kind of how I see that going now. So even there, Gomez is looking at, 3 reshuffles on either position, on any position across.
I even wonder, is Konza ahead of him at right back? Because Konza played a lot of right back this past season.
Yeah, and he was playing right back in the warm-up as well. So maybe he's just there as, complete super cover. Maybe if Kieran Trippier has a particularly poor game, Gomez plays left back as, the first alternate until Luke Shaw is ready. But by and large, I don't expect Joe Gomez to feature in the knockouts, let's put it that way. If he does play, maybe it's third group game if England do the job early.
Yeah.
I think extraordinarily likely on recent performances, to be fair, but or else it's like a lot of injuries happen, basically.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's wrong. I think he should be the starting left back. I think Trippier had a dreadful season for Newcastle at right back and is 34. And if you really want to be walking into an international competition with two 34-year-old fullbacks, then more fool you. I really don't understand why Luke Shaw's in the squad. Like, if he's not fit to start the tournament, you're talking about a player coming back with no real recovery time to get up to speed and then being thrown straight in to a tournament and having to play every 3 or 4 days. That just seems stupid to me. Hopefully Joe gets an opportunity and takes it. But like you, I have doubts that he plays very much. How do you see England doing, Karl? What would you say is there a level of failure where you think the immediate reaction will be Southgate has to go now? Group stage, obviously, but I don't think it's realistic that they fail in the group stage. I just think the group is...
It's too ordinary.
Yeah, it's very straightforward. And but what's realistic after that? In terms of England to do well and England not to do well, where's the variance there?
I think England should reach the semi-finals. I don't think that there's enough challenge there, but compared to what they've done, compared to what the players do domestically, I don't think there's anywhere near enough challenge thereafter. Obviously one of the big teams could end up on their side or whatever, but basically you plan it any way you want in the Euro 2024. The predictors, your assessments of which games go, who wins them and who gets through the group stage and all the rest of it. Whichever way around you do it, England's path shouldn't be outrageous until the semis. And at that point, I keep ending up with them France. Maybe other people get them with somewhere else. But I think at that point, again, you're looking at unsurprising nations getting to the last four. England should be one of them. So if they go out before that, they failed, I think. If they go out in the semi-finals, there are going to be questions again of what if, or, should another manager have done something else or whatever. But I think in terms of Southgate, questions of him will be if they... how to term it? Don't go basically attack-minded. If you get out in another game to France because you've been fairly good but fairly safe, you've not overcommitted, you've not gone for the win rather than tried not to lose. I think if that happens, then nobody's going to feel very sorry for him. But he's also picked, at least in the final third, a squad which suggests that that's the intention, is to go on the front foot and sort of unleash a few talents with something to prove still or something to win still. Whether or not it all translates like that actually in game time is a completely different matter, but I don't think that England should be looking at anything other than a semi-finals, and then you've got to really step up in that performance against that big nation whenever that comes along.
Yeah, I mean, if they win the group, they'll play a team that's finished third in either groups D, E, or F. And if they win that, they will take on the winner of the game between the runner-up in Group A, which will be Scotland, Hungary, or Switzerland, most likely, and Group B. Now, that could be tricky, because that group has Spain, Croatia, and the Italians. Now, England will be favourites to beat any of them. But at the same time, if the game went a certain way, and as you're saying, if England weren't adventurous in that game, if it was similar to, say, remember that American game in the World Cup? Something like that, where it's a real kind of war of attrition type, and maybe England just sort of fail the mental test there. They could well go out in the quarterfinals, but like you, I'd expect them to reach the semis. And I think going out in the semi-finals is acceptable if you lose to one of the teams that, you could see winning the competition. But if they were to, let's just say, for whatever reason, the French get upset in their group and the Netherlands beat them, I don't think anyone's sitting here at the start of the tournament saying, I think the Netherlands are going to win the competition, other than Dutch people, obviously. And even them, I think they're going to be realistic. If they were to lose to the Dutch, I do think that would be a failure at the semi-final stage.
Yeah, that's fair. It has to be against, like I say, one who's already established. England basically are. This England team, at least, is already established. So even like a Spain, to be honest, like there's plenty of up-and-coming players there. Again, they've got some really good young talents. But that team's not finished.
No, and there's no proven goal scorer in that team, which is a big factor in this competition.
Like the manager obviously hasn't been there very long in terms of compared to Southgate or that. It's not a complete project there. So I think that would be a massive disappointment if they were to go out there, for example. Generally speaking, I think Trent could be a bit of a factor here as well. We haven't spoken about him just yet, obviously, and we will do, because that's the point of the podcast. But I do think that someone like Trent is going to be indicative of where England go out or go to, because when you're talking about that Southgate making that extra attacking decision or taking that extra risk or going somewhere he hasn't quite done so beforehand, Trent's like the perfect example of that. How old? What is he, 25 now? He's won the Champions League, he's won the Premier League, he's been to 3 European finals, four European finals, is it? Can't remember if he played in that first one or not. Anyway, 3 at least. And he's played 1 game at major tournaments.
Yeah.
That's just ludicrous. You've got to find a way. And obviously, he is trying to, with him being in midfield. But if that doesn't stick in midfield, play him at right back. That's the other alternative, because we know what we're getting from some of them, and that's not necessarily winning the tournament, is it?
Do you think playing Trent in midfield is brave or foolhardy?
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
It feels to me like if he really wanted to be brave, he'd play Trent at right back, because that's what Trent is a right back.
Yeah.
It feels like he's heard the criticism. He knows Trent should be in the team, because if you're listing the best English players, you're not getting out of your top 5 without naming Trent among them. But it almost feels like he doesn't trust him, or doesn't want to be too ambitious, so won't play him right back. And putting him in midfield almost feels like an uneasy kind of truce, because like Trent and Declan Rice, a double pivot, will be fine against most teams, because let's be honest, the standard is not very good at international level. But against a really high-end midfield, like if they come up against France and it's Camavinga and Tchouaméni, I could see England getting eaten alive in midfield in that with those two against the French too.
Well, yeah, I think that's the thing. I think especially because we've got a bigger pool to pick from now with 26 players, I don't think that you should have just a first choice 11. You wouldn't have in the forward line, like if Saka doesn't play well for the first couple of games, you're not just going to leave him in because he's the starter. Or if he comes up against a team where they play, let's say, a right-footed left-back who's got good pace, for example, who's really good at challenging, you're not just going to play him regardless. You might go for then a Foden, or you might put Gordon right wing to go on the outside. You're going to do different things for different opposition and different game plans, and I think that should be the same in midfield. I think for the group stage, Trent should play midfield because England will dominate the ball. England will dominate territory for most of those matches, for most of those opponents, and there's not anybody in there who's as good on the ball as Trent. But in those 3 games, Trent also has to show that he has the positional discipline, the tracking back ability, the willingness to do the off-the-ball work that you need in central midfield to play in the bigger games, because so far we've not seen any indication.
Yeah, I agree. I just wonder, against a team like, say, the Danes in the group stage, a team that's really, really well organised, really physical, really aggressive in the middle of the park, and does like to operate like one of their players in that space behind the opposition midfield. Is there enough discipline in that England duo that they don't get hurt in that? Like, because it's one thing dominating the ball. It's another thing, what do you do with the ball when you have it? Are you creating enough chances? Are you scoring enough goals? And if that's a tight game, it would only take one moment of Højbjerg splits Rice and Trent, and all of a sudden Eriksen's behind the pair of them, and neither of them know he's there, because that's the weakness for both of them. Is that for Trent, because he's not a midfielder, he doesn't have that type of spatial awareness you'd normally associate with a central midfielder. And Rice is very, very ball orientated. Like, Rice wants to go and win the ball.
Yeah.
And the one way teams hurt Arsenal in the first half of the season, when Rice was predominantly playing as the 6, was playing into the space that he was vacating when he would go and try and press or win the ball back. And if Trent isn't switched on enough, which is why I've said I think Adam Wharton should start, because Wharton will sit and will be disciplined. And I don't think Trent is better on the ball in general, but as a passer of the ball, especially in central areas, I think Adam Wharton is not Trent, but he's the next best thing. And maybe a little bit quicker and more natural at moving the ball in those areas. Like we saw with Trent this past season as well, how he falls in love with those longer passes. And at times, that's not what you need. And if England are going to line up with Saka, Bellingham, Foden, and Kane, there isn't really a ton of pace in that lineup. So for Trent, who likes to play those balls in behind, who's he playing them to? Like, there's not an out ball there, which is why I think he might be better at right back, because then he can have that cross-field ball to Foden, which is the long pass, but he can hit Foden in front of the right back, and Foden can take the man on. And likewise, he can play the diagonal to the left back, or who's moving forward, or that angled ball to Kane, which is easier than the straight ball from midfield to Kane, because Kane doesn't have the pace if it's a yard or two ahead of him.
Yeah, that's fair. Like I say, I think that there should be different roles for different games, and like I would have Trent in the team all the time because he's one of the best players.
Same,
but you have to find which game that is for him in each position, perhaps. Like, I wouldn't personally play Wharton against Serbia in the opener. I think that that's too much of a powerful midfield, too much of a very, very experienced midfield for him to go up against. So if you're planning on playing Trent in midfield for many games, I would put Trent in there for that one. It's going to be a real test for him because some of them are bigger than him. Some of them are a lot more aggressive than him when it comes to being like combative and that. But he's also technically better than them. And it should be something that he sort of, almost for professional pride as much as anything else, and his ego and all the rest of it, you step up and you play well and you make sure that middle of the park is yours. And then maybe for the Denmark game, like you say, maybe you put a Wharton in on that one because it's a bit more important to be mobile and organised, and your off the ball reading of the game has got to be really good, and so on. And then Slovenia, you do what you need to do. If you've got 2 wins, maybe you play him right back or you rest him or whatever it is. Just find a way, though. Make sure that you find a way, one, to include Trent, and two, you're not just wedded to an ideal that that's your 11. You're just going to shoehorn people in regardless.
The thing as well that I'd look at is, like, people discuss Trent defensively, but I look at Slovenia, Serbia, and Denmark, and I say, well, who's the left winger that's going to hurt Trent if he's the right back? Like, why do you need Kyle Walker there? Who's the player you're looking for Walker as your shutdown option? There isn't one in that group. If they go through, they're playing likely Poland or Austria, one of Slovakia, Romania, or Ukraine, and Georgia, Turkey, or the Czech Republic. Now, the Czech Republic don't have a left winger that can hurt them, but I think they'll finish bottom of their group. Georgia do have a left winger who's an absolute nightmare for Trent and has absolutely rinsed him. But that's one game. And it's only a possibility that you get them. You could also get Ukraine. You're not really going to worry all that much about Mudryk. Despite his pace, it's not like he's good. So I don't really see the benefit in playing Walker unless you're going up against Kvaratskhelia, Rafael Leao, or France with Mbappe. They're the only games I'd look at. And even at that, Mbappe's more likely to play a bit more central anyway. So I do wonder, like, we keep hearing that England need Kyle Walker as a shutdown option. Well, first of all, he hasn't been that in about 2 years. And secondly, for who? Like, who is it that you're concerned with in these group games especially? There isn't a dynamite left winger among those three teams. I mean, I don't see what the risk would be.
The most important covering aspect in terms of Walker's pace is probably the England centre-backs, if we're being perfectly honest.
Yeah, but if it's Mark Guehi at centre-back rather than Slabhead, I don't think that's as big an issue.
It shouldn't be. Guehi and Stone should have been playing centre-back anyway. They are quite good together. It should be an all right partnership if you get the ones around them right.
I think Guehi could come out of this as a big-time target for some top clubs. I think he's really, really good. And if he gets the three group games under his belt, builds that partnership. Now, the issue for him is who's playing left back, because if it's Trippier, it might leave him a little bit exposed, because Trippier's never been a great defender. He's not the quickest in the world. And if he gets caught up the pitch, it could leave Guehi with quite a lot to do. And I suppose that's where he can step across, Stones can play the anchor role in the middle, and Walker can tuck in. And maybe that's kind of what Southgate will look at is, Trent shifting from that central role, maybe a bit wider in possession, and Trippier flanking in midfield. Trippier kind of stepping in to a similar kind of role on the left and look to have control from there. But I don't know. I just think Southgate, would you trust him to do the right things? I don't know that I would. But while I have you on the topic of Southgate, I'm just going to completely hijack this podcast. Karl, there is growing belief that the first choice for Ineos and Dan Ashworth, if they are to move on from Eric Ten Hag this summer at Manchester United, that the first choice option is none other than Gareth Southgate. Your thoughts, please.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah. I actually understand it a little bit in terms of the reasons that are being, shall we say, spoken about or released by the club to speak about, is like the whole aspect of changing the culture at the club, changing the mindset of the dressing room, getting people in line and refreshing it and all that, because he's done it with England. But it's still a completely different thing, and I don't really overall understand or think that that's the completely correct approach, but go for it.
See, it's a funny thing, because I've seen people say the same. He has done it with England. There's no question. He has very much changed the culture in England. I do feel like it's a lot easier to do at the international level, because players are there as like a national duty. Like, they're not just there because that club bought them and pays their wages. I think there's a lot more pride in playing for your country than there is for your club. But the other side of it is, he's been England manager now a long, long time. Like, we're approaching 8 years. And it took him quite a few years to really get the culture to a strong foothold. And you're not going to get that kind of time at club level, obviously. So, and you look at some of that squad, like, can you really convince Anthony to stop walking around like a twat? Can you really convince Sancho to give his all, especially when you, as Gareth Southgate, have dropped him from England multiple times? You know, is Bruno Fernandes going to look at you and think, yeah, you're the guy I want to play for? Is he good enough as a development coach to take Rasmus Højlund and Garnacho and Kobbie Mainoo and lift them to the level that people think their talent can get them to? I think it's... I see the logic in it. I just think it's a very different kettle of fish when you try to do it at club level than at international level. Anyway, let's move on. There's nobody in the Slovenia, Denmark and Serbia squads, they said, but we are quite heavily represented in Group D. Now, we have nobody in the Polish squad. We have nobody in the Austrian squad. But we are represented in the other two. So the French, Ibou Konaté is in the squad and expected to start at centre-back alongside Dayot Upamecano. Your thoughts on that pairing? The likelihood that Saliba probably comes in at some point, and what you think Konaté will do alongside either Upamecano or Saliba moving forward?
I must admit, I think both of them are fairly fortunate. Ibou, we've seen the very, very good and the not very, very good at all from him. And a lot of that is rhythm, game time, fitness, partnership, all the rest of it. That's fine, I get it. But you still have to produce that on a regular basis, and part of that is just down to you, and that's how it is. And Konaté's not really hit that this season. At the same token, if you turn up to your France squad and your options for centre-back appear for them to be basically... I mean, I assume Koundé is going to be there as a right-back, which means Pavard is their other centre-back. I'm not playing him at centre-back at Euro.
Who's definitely not.
No. And then the other centre-back is obviously Saliba. Now, you would think that he would probably have earned the spot this season by his performances, but if you also have a pairing who have played together a lot, not just international level, but at club level as well, as we've spoken about before, that's probably more important than individual talent. You've got to have a foundation, you've got to have a partnership, understanding, complement each other, and maybe just thinks that Konaté complements Upamecano better.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I mean, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but Didier Deschamps is actually French for Gareth Southgate. So club form often doesn't really come into the thinking here, which is something we'll likely see repeated in midfield if he decides to start Rabiot, who was mediocre at the best of times this past season, over Camavinga, who's not only a much better player, but also coming in much better form. I mean, if you look at the skill sets and what should make a partnership at centre-back, for me, Ibou and Saliba looks like the most natural fitting partnership, with Koundé right back and then Theo Hernandez at left back. But I don't really understand the obsession he has with Upamecano. I know it's because there's an idea that Upamecano is an elite ball player from the back, and he is very good. Like, he's a very good passer from the back. But he makes so many mistakes, Karl. I know Ibou had an up and down season, and by his standards, he was poor. But Upamecano was flat out bad this past season. And I really don't understand the logic in picking him, regardless of whether you think they complement each other best. When they played together at Leipzig, it was largely in a 3. And there was a lot of games where it didn't work at all, and the two of them looked quite calamitous. And you feel like if you look at Ibou and when he's at his very best for Liverpool, it's next to Van Dijk. And now, there's nobody in that French squad that's a patch on Van Dijk, but if you were to go on Wish and order Virgil van Dijk, what they would send you out is William Saliba, stylistically a similar defender to Virgil. Now, maybe the issue is that they both him and Ibu prefer to play the right-sided role. Maybe that's the case, but Upamecano also prefers to play the right-sided role, but has been shoehorned across to the left side, which is where many of his problems have stemmed from. So, I don't know, like, I'd rather play Saliba. I'd actually rather go Kanate, Saliba, right side, Ibu, left side, and Theo as the left back. For me, that defence should pick itself, and then Tchouaméni and Camavinga sit in front of them, and then you go from there with whatever you want.
Yeah, I do think that Saliba should probably be.
Hey guys, it's Eddie Gibbs from Anfield Index here. I hope you're enjoying this podcast, and I'm sorry to call time on the show before it ends. In the current climate, it's tougher than ever before to offer podcasts for free. At Anfield Index, we produce over 75 free shows every month, which I'm confident is unparalleled in the LFC sphere. Whilst we'd love to offer everything for free, the production costs now make this impossible. That said, we don't want to follow the model of other channels and lock all of our content behind a paywall. So what we've decided to do is to continue offering every show for free, but cut that offering to 30 minutes on our longer shows. So to get all of our shows in full and enjoy the best of everything we have to offer, we really hope you'll consider supporting the channel and signing up at AnfieldIndexPro.com. For about the price of 1 cup of coffee, you'll get every podcast in full with 0 ads. You'll also get access to our LFC VIP community, where you can enjoy live podcasts, engage with our podcasters, and chat with other Reds in real time. So that website again, AnfieldIndexPro.com. Join today.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
The delicious ice-cold taste of Dr. Pepper has a lasting effect on people. Lindsay from Sacramento said,
Pro tip, 40 degrees is the perfect temperature for an ice-cold Dr. Pepper.
why is 40 degrees the perfect temperature for Dr. Pepper? We brought in Sue from Duluth, Minnesota to tell us.
Oh, yeah, I know a thing or two about cold. Oh, that right there is the perfect kind of ice-cold for Dr. Pepper. I'd share that with my friend Nancy. She likes Dr. Pepper, too, you know. My coldest...
All right, that'll be all, Sue. Having a perfect temperature for your Dr. Pepper? It's a Pepper thing. Inspired by real fan posts.